So in the meantime, Curt, can you tell us about your trip to South America? Um,
Uh, sure, I can. Yeah. Well, I was in Panama,
mhm.
and on I guess, the most northern point of the coast, on the Atlantic side, on
Okay.
a very remote property of a couple of hundred acres that hosted what's known as the tribal gathering. So they bring together about anywhere from 30 to 50 tribes from around the world, representatives, maybe two, three, four, or five from each. And the purpose is to have people meet indigenous people that we might not otherwise be able to meet. Now, of course, these are the representatives willing to go out and market their particular indigenous tribe. So, it's not like going into villages and just meeting people where they're at. Yeah, however, it does bring in contact a lot of different backgrounds and cultures and music and food and crafts and everything, and that's the whole purpose of it. So it was about 10 days that particular part lasts. So it's just a beautiful place to be and to spend time in conversation, and also not just with the indigenous folks, but with the other people that come there with an interest in supporting the indigenous cultures and helping them out at whatever level they can, I guess. So it was another good trip. I've been there 2 years ago. Each year is a little bit different. They have different tribes, though there are some same people. And music was different. I did have lots of conversations with elders from the tribe, so it was different than my first year, where I didn't quite get into making those connections that deeply on a personal level. And I went with the intention of doing interviews of about 3 to 5 minutes with a lot of the indigenous folks, just to get their take on the status of the world and what we could do from their perspective. And I found that it was really no different than what we already know and think. They're concerned about their culture, they're concerned about their environment, they're concerned about their ability to survive. And they're asking for support and solidarity. So I gave up on the documentation pretty early, as it wasn't anything new that I could come up with, and there were already a lot of people doing interviews like that. So I spent my time just in conversation with them, and just get to know them as people without having to get major statements about how they feel about the world. They're like you and me. They have their concerns, and certainly as the virus started taking hold, I didn't get very much news while I was on site. But it started to happen just before I left. So, that just compounds the whole issue of people being able to survive, and maybe they'll survive better in their isolation, I guess, at least for the short term, as far as not being connected with the virus. But as we all know, everybody crosses everybody's paths, and we're all intertwined, and a visitor, just one, is enough to infect a village. So it wasn't a major topic at the event, but it was an undertone that we kind of understood was developing, that if it got as bad as we're seeing that it is, it could impact them even down to the local granular level. So I got out a week early. I had a week travel planned in Panama. And the day that I got back to Panama City, that night, actually, the president came on and said he was going to start to close and sequester, and a lot of the places that I would have gone to travel to were already shutting down for tourism. So I figured it was best for me just to get back to home base and be able to function here as best I can. So here I am. I'm happy, glad I went, glad to be back. So far, I'm healthy and have a little tan. And so my vitamin D will hold me steady for at least a couple of days. And the good news is we can all be outside and catching good weather if we have it. So that's my plan for the next couple of weeks, is to get a lot done than I had planned on doing anyway, just less socialization on an interpersonal level, and maybe some more of this more often with friends and family. So
Yeah, that's priceless.
Yeah.
It's we don't realize the importance of our relationships, but yeah, I'm actually super inspired that you sort of went out with that sort of vision and like idea that we really need to connect with everyone else and know where they're at, to be able to actually come up with solutions. If we don't broaden our perspective and know where everyone else is coming from, then we don't know, you know. So
Yeah.
it's wonderful that you're doing things like that. Um, yeah, I wish I could have been there. You know, it would have been for me really interesting. I mean, in South Africa, yeah, we've got so many different tribes and so many different cultures and ways of life and everything. It's brilliant. Just depending on the region that you're in.
Yeah.
Within South Africa itself, there's like 13 different languages, but across the whole of Africa, it's probably an astronomical number of different tribes and languages. So I'm not sure of what that number is, but uh, you know, haven't given it any thought or done any research on it. But I know that, you know, when we moved from Zambia, they spoke a totally different Swahili, I think, and down here in Natal, it's Xhosa and Zulu, which are the main languages. But as
Mm.
there's the San and the Khoi and the you know, basically the Bushmen, and each one of them speaks in a different number of clicks. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting. Yeah, no, it's how you click your tongue. Especially with the Bushmen, it's very much a clicking language. Although also Zulu does have quite a lot of it to it. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. There were three representatives. I'll call them Bushmen. I don't remember which tribe they're from, but one of them that I spoke with a number of times. We're probably about the same age. Nah, actually, he's younger because he jumps about 3 feet in the air when he's dancing. So
Oh,
either he's younger, or just much better shape. But
yeah, that's the Maasai, which live in the region where we have these huge migrations of animals, and you often see it on TVs.
uh,
And they're a tribe that jump a lot, you know. So
yeah, he did that. But he also he spent probably a good 15 minutes explaining to me the clicking, and his particular group has 4 clicks, and he explained them. I don't remember the explanation,
uh,
but yeah, and then so he would say something in his language and then translate it for me, and sometimes even in the English. He spoke very good English. He would click through. So I hadn't heard that in so many decades, and actually been part of that conversation with it. So it just reminded me how different, we've created things that make sense for our culture, but other cultures have no idea what it means.
okay.
Yeah. Hi,
No,
Diane.
no
Hi,
luck.
Curt. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good.
Had a
All
nice
right.
2 weeks.
Yes, you had quite the crazy adventure.
Some of it was, yeah. Yeah. At least I got back okay, and it wasn't too much of a struggle.
Yes. Well, I checked out the event on the computer, and it looked like it was a pretty amazing
Uh,
um, gathering of folks.
yeah, it is. They do a good job. Um, it's not like meeting them in their own villages, but it's a good way to get cultures mixed and to meet lots of different cultures and indigenous folks in one spot. So
on that level, it was good.
Did you take pictures?
You know, last time I took about 1,000. This
Right.
time I took maybe 100. Opening ceremony and the first day, and then I just wasn't motivated to do it. I didn't want to document it. I just wanted to be there and participate. So
Absorb. Right.
I have a good friend who's a staff photographer for them, and you know, just talking with him and being with him when he's shooting, I said, I'll get all the ones I need from you. Um,
Oh, smart.
I I did take a few hours of videos of music performances though. Both spontaneous, which was kind of neat. We had a mixture of cultures doing jams. And then they have, probably over the week of the live music, maybe 40 performances of groups from around the world, actually. So
Was it,
I shot a lot of that.
how many people do you think were there?
There are only about 800 this year. 2 years ago, there were double that number.
Right.
Last year, unfortunately, there was a death on property after like the third or fourth day. Um, and that kind of put a little something on the whole event. Uh, for 2 years ago, they offered sacred medicines in a separate off the main area for people who wanted to try them, and they invited specific shaman who they knew, and so they vetted the shaman and the medicines that they use and the way they perform the ceremonies. But apparently, a very young and maybe somewhat experienced medicine user just had a heart attack, and unfortunately, it gets blamed on the medicine, and you know, so.
Was that the
So
ayahuasca?
among other things, yeah, yeah.
Right.
Apparently, Panama allows almost any medicine except marijuana and cocaine. So
Okay.
ayahuasca, peyote, mushrooms, iboga, you know,
Anything you wanted, right?
Shuma. Yeah, but all at least the shamans do it in a very controlled environment. Of course, people
Right.
bring their own and do their own stuff on the side, but yeah. So I think on that level, again, it's allowing people to find out about various cultures and their ceremonies
Mm-hmm.
in a controlled environment. So
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, things happen, as you know, and
Mm-hmm.
so attendance was down this year, but it was a much more intimate event. And as I was telling Dennis and Alex, I was able to talk with many of the indigenous leaders that were there, whereas
Okay.
years ago it was just kind of harder to get in touch with them. So
Right.
it was a good event for me.
Good.
Thank you. I'll post some videos and photos in time.
Did you get a takeaway?
Did I get a?
Takeaway? Like a takeaway, like I experienced all this, and from that I had this aha moment.
Yeah, I was telling Dennis, my intention going in was to interview as many of the indigenous folk as I could, just about their worldview and what they thought we could do to support it, their perspective of the world. And
Mm-hmm.
after a few conversations, they all come from the same place. You know, we need help. We're concerned. We need your support. And I just decided that project didn't need to be said because it's already being said everywhere. And whether I speak with Native Americans in Florida
What, what
or
kind of help?
protection help from the government, from the corporations that are moving in, from the abuse that's being rained down on indigenous folk everywhere. Um,
Mean like
that,
from
that kind of stuff.
mean like from takeover of their natural resources from big
Well,
government?
correct, yeah. So
Okay.
certainly that showed up a lot. Now, there was a group from Rajasthan, a wonderful performance group. They don't have that issue. Um, so, you know, for them, it was a whole different relationship. And there's a guy from Mali that's come a couple of years, and, you know, they have their own diaspora in Africa now. And but for many of the South and Central American, and of course they're well represented because it's in Central America, and even the Maori. There was some from New Zealand and some from Australia and Borneo. They also talked about just that, threat of civilization on their way of life.
Are
So
you able to are you able to like put into words each one of these groups that was there and like write a little article or something that could be published on some of these beliefs of the various people? Because it sounds like a nice collection of groups.
well, the collection of groups is great. Again, that was my intention, was to document a short 3 to 5 minute conversation with them on how they felt and what their worldview was, and how the rest of the world could support indigenous people, them specific. And again, after a few conversations, I found that it was almost the same thing, and it didn't make sense for me to just show this same conversation from different people. And at the same time, they were being bombarded with everybody wanting, can I have an interview with you? Can I have an interview with you?
Right.
And that was me putting my phone in their face, right? So, and I think the organization itself has staff videographers and photographers, and they did wonderful jobs about isolating the people.
Are they going to make like this available on YouTube? Like if you want to go see these different people and hear their conversation, you can?
Yes, I can't give you the timeline, but yes, they will be putting it both on their Facebook page, their website, and wherever they can to promote the event. And that's one of their purposes as well, is to get the information out. The umbrella company that ran this event is called Geo Paradise, and they're a nonprofit that really looks to support indigenous people. And this
So
event
they'll have it
one
on
of
their
them.
website, right?
Sorry?
Geo Paradise would have it on their website?
Exactly, yeah. Both there and the tribal gathering. So, stay tuned to them over the next weeks and months. I'm sure they'll put together a promo video, and they shot amongst, I guess there were 3 videographers out there all the time. There's probably hundreds and hundreds of video and tens of thousands of photographs that they collected. So we'll see how they put them out. But,
So
I have a good friend who's a staff photographer, and I can ask him, is there a timeline? Do you know what they're doing? And just get the inside scoop on
are they just kind of into awareness, or are they looking for ways that they can do things for the planet to help heal the planet?
Geoparadise?
Mhm.
No, they're a nonprofit, not just to run events, but also to raise money. So, for example, they rent tents and things like that for the event.
Are they action oriented to the planet
Yes.
itself?
Yes, yes. At what levels I can't speak. I know, for example, that they donate a lot of the materials and goods that were from the event, like all the tents. They'll donate to Panamanian tribes to make sure that they get repurposed. The entire event was based on sustainability down to as micro as they can get it to be. There were like beach collections, and I don't want to take this too far off, but they had beach collections, and the Panama Beach, which is such a pristine beach, has so much wash up of plastic. It was really sad to see, because I did some walks off the property, at least off the main premises, and this is not garbage from the group. This is stuff that's just washed up onto the shore.
Right.
So they had a plastic chewer that made everything down into small little particles, and then they melted. And one guy, wonderful artist, was making art out of what had washed up on the shore, or what reused the plastic on site. They also made things like some dinner plates and some doorknobs for the loos. So they were actually putting into purpose on site sustainability activities. So for the most part, they're action oriented, not just let's say it and have it be nice. So yeah, I like the organization.
Talk about food?
I'm sorry?
Did they talk about food?
No more than They have probably 10 local food vendors, and all of the food that was in their commissary, they had a really nice commissary for people that didn't want to go indigenous, was all locally sourced as well and good healthy stuff. They had vegan, vegetarian, and then of course meat eating options. But again, it was in practice, not as preach. So there weren't any, actually, there were workshops all day long and probably sometimes 4 or 5 at the same time. So it was hard to get to which ones that you want to see. So there may have been some workshops on food. I'm sure there were. Again, depending on what the indigenous people wanted to speak about, they brought lots of other different things as well.
Okay.
But yeah, again, I like the event. I think it's clean. I think the heart is in the right place. They're not so much profit oriented as awareness and contribution oriented. And attendees certainly get, hey, clean up after yourself. This is our earth and this village that we created. And they build it from scratch every year, by the way. They don't leave anything on site except for one bar that's made out of driftwood, and it's a really nice thing. But everything else is broken down, put in a container, and repurposed for the next year, or repurposed out to the community as it's needed. So
Good.
the attendees really get that infusion, and it's not something that's just on the sideline. They make sure people are aware. Yeah.
Cool.